Well, the first chapter of our Lord's Prayer is something amazing because it starts off with Our Father. Just think about it. Jesus was asked by the disciples who walked with him. Jesus taught all of these kind of miracles that they saw. And then there was this question that they asked him, teach us to pray. Now, I want to start off by saying the disciples knew how to pray. This wasn't an issue of saying, oh, well, we don't know anything about this. Jewish boys, before the age of 8, would have known the Torah. Now, we're talking about confirmation in terms of all the things that we learned. Do you realize that the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible? They knew that before they were 8. So when we're talking about what we're learning, we're nowhere near the kind of download that they had to go through in order to be recognized and confirm their faith in the Jewish setting. So when we're talking about prayer, they knew prayer. They wrote prayer, they learned prayers, all of these set prayers. But when they saw Jesus praying, they said, can you teach us the way that you pray? So keep that in mind. There's something that they saw about how Jesus prayed. And I think it's because so often when we think about faith, when we talk about prayer, we keep it academic. It's like, I learn these things, but then the question has to come, and this is the confirmation question, by the way, which you'll see in your books. So what does this mean? You have to somehow get it from here, into your heart. Pray from the heart, not from the head, but from the heart. It's a relationship. And I think the disciples saw in Jesus the relationship he had with God. It was a relational prayer, something that was coming from deep within him, from his heart. I heard it said, the longest road to travel is actually the length of a ruler, 30 centimeters, from the head to the heart. That's all it takes. From here to here is the longest road to travel. Why is that the longest road? Because so often we like the idea of concepts. I can tick the box that I've learned the Lord's Prayer. But then the question is, but do you know how to pray? From the heart. I want to share with you a story about my grandfather. Again, like so many other people, he grew up in the church, he knew it all, went through confirmation, all the things that you and I probably sort of say, well, that's just a normal thing. He was actually in the war, in the Second World War, in the Russian front. And when all of the bombs and everything else was at its worst, he shares with me, that's when he prayed. A soldier's prayer, kind of like, God, get me out of here. And if you get me out of here and I survive, I'll give you my life and I'll do this and whatever it is. That kind of desperate prayer that comes from the heart when everything is crashing in around you. Well, the funny thing is that God has actually spared his life, and that's why I'm here, because my grandfather, obviously, had some kids and, off it goes. And here I am because God answered in prayer that was there in the midst of war. And shortly after the war had finished, when everything was settled and he was home and all these kind of things took place, God reminded him of that prayer, woke him up, just like Samuel. If you want to read about Samuel, when Samuel was in the temple and heard the voice of God speak and say, Samuel, Samuel, and he woke up. And remember that story? I don't know if you do, but you can check that out yourself. Down the bottom you'll see the reference. But the important thing is, my grandfather heard his name being called, and he remembered this prayer. Something traveled from here into here, and now God was speaking to his heart and calling him back into relationship. And as you open it up, you see the first thing, Jesus then teaches us Our Father, which is highly relational. It's a relational term. It's a family term. It's not the force be with you, or something like that. It's Dad. And Jesus actually used the word in his local language, in his language, Abba, Father, which we translate. But the funny thing is that it's Daddy. Here Jesus is saying to us, okay, when you start to pray to God the way that you talk to your mum and dad, the way that the close relationships at home, they mean something, they connect with you. And the way that we think about God, he starts us off saying, Our Father, our Dad, Daddy. So have a look at the table of contents. You'll see that. going to page 12. So let's have a look at page 12. As you go through this book, you can see that you can fill in a lot of other things. Here we go. The Lord's Prayer, Our Father, Matthew chapter 6. You can read that for yourself. Have a read of the little script that's here around the kitchen table. Mum and Dad, you can sit down and have a bit of a read. Over the page, we then come to that, check it out. So what does this mean? The confirmation question. Let's unpack this. Let's talk about what that means. Because that's what confirmation is. It's unpacking this, getting the head knowledge, but then connecting with the heart and saying, well, what does that mean? Have a look at that reference here with the Bible time, with the role playing, with the questions, and spend a bit of time with your high and low, your faith fives. Pray with one another, hear one another, speak with one another. During the week, I'd like you then to go and turn to this page where every day in your little quiet moment, you can have a little memory verse, write down what happened in your day, your highs and lows, a little prayer request. Write this down. That's just your personal prayer time. At the end of the week, you can come and talk to Mum and Dad again, get them to do a quiz, and open up the page for the next heading. But that's for next time. So I will see you next week.